Will Sony remove the crop on their Sony A7 IV in 4K 60p? I answer that question and some other ones. Stay tuned. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Style and Camera Guy back at it again with another video for you. Hope you're all doing well. This is just me answering a couple of questions that I got from my previous video, my unboxing of the A7 IV. I still have not had a chance to actually use this camera yet. Unfortunately, I have played around with it, tested a few things out. Overall, I really do like it, just on the fact that it's very similar to the A7S III menus, feel, and case use. And I really like the setup with a battery grip. So I know the battery grip is pretty pricey as far as an addition goes, but if you like to have that vertical grip side of things, having a battery grip with it makes it feel a lot more solid. But other than that, I wanted to answer this question. There's two actually. One of the viewers asked, is Sony planning or could remove the crop on the 4K 60p? Now, this was something I had to think a little bit about because, well, my straight answer to this person, I think it's user Tom1, I think, thanks for asking the question, is that they probably won't. And unfortunately, unless it was an issue that was brought up to the point where it was a major issue for the company, they probably wouldn't have addressed it. And I've been in that situation before, for those that remember, and it had to do with the Sony A9, this guy right here, right? This did not come out with, I was excited about it, and then when I got my initial model of it, it had those overheating issues. And what was really bothersome at the time, right, this was happening in 2017 or so, overheating was a problem that was happening with Sony cameras before the A9 came out, and it was just so strange that people were always saying things like you're blowing it out of proportion, you're just hyping this up, or what have you. But it was a genuine issue. People were spending a lot of money on the camera, and it was overheating. And I wasn't the only one dealing with that same problem. And it was happening with their other camera models too. People would say things like, well, don't leave it out in the sun, don't do this, don't do that. And I get it, right? But the way the camera is advertised, I didn't want to think that, I wanted it to be a good camera. I wanted to perform the job that I wanted it to do. And you know what happened? Sony addressed it. People made a big stink about it. I was one of those people, and other people also. They made a big stink about it, a big issue about it, and eventually got to them. They addressed it with some firmware updates, and they even updated firmware for their previous models, like their A6300 and A6500, I believe, even the A7R2 for extended recording time, because there was such a big push about this particular topic. Viewers started talking about it as well. They would always test overheating. But guess what? It's not a big deal anymore. I would say for the vast majority of users, overheating is almost non-existent with their current generation of cameras. So going back to the whole 4K 60p thing, the problem is people aren't making a big stink about it. If you notice, and this is not a knock on anybody, and I'm not trying to stir up any problems with it, what you'll notice is, you know, I didn't get an early copy of it, obviously, because I've been out of the loop. But when you get the copies, people aren't going to be outright saying horrible things about it or being very strong about a particular issue. For me, I genuinely had a very strong opinion about the 4K 60p crop on this particular camera, because it was a feature that I was hoping they would have addressed, and we've been waiting for that for this camera. Not only that, the price went up too on the 4K on the Sony A7 IV. It wasn't still at the same price as before. You did add all these nice benefits and these little bells and whistles, but now I had to think about that little crop factor in 4K 60p. So here's the problem. Could Sony resolve the crop in this camera? Probably. Probably could. I mean, they pulled it off on their A1. Maybe it won't have the same quality, right, as far as how all that works, but they could have solved it. Could they pull it off in a firmware or something, or some sort of update? There's a chance they could do it, but there's no urgency to do it. There's no urgency for them to want to address it, because no one else is really making a stink about it. So if no one makes a stink about it, which is going to be the vast majority of people that get sent early copies now, they're not really going to hit them hard for this particular issue, so it's not going to get addressed. And like I said, that's just going to be the case, unfortunately. So that's my prediction on 4K 60p. Now, if people bring it up and say, well, we expect the next one to come around without it, then we're back into this little weird sort of why do we have to wait for the next model to come out in another 2-3 years for them to address this problem? All right, the next thing is, and I want to talk a little bit more about it. I remember when the R5 came out, and I tried it out, and there was this whole overheating issue, and it was really strange. I had no problem with the R5. I knew that if you shot in a lower quality 4K, you wouldn't have to deal with it. But when you're using a camera and you're out on the field doing hybrid shooting, it's not a good feeling to see the thing tell you, the camera tell you, you have this many minutes left on the camera, or it may overheat. That's not a good feeling. And I'd been through that before. And so I made a big stink about it. Other folks did make a big stink about it. And you know what happened? Canon addressed it with the firmware update. During that time, what's really weird, a lot of folks were always saying things like, well, it was not a big deal. It's not a big deal. These people are making it out to be, I'll turn the camera off and then I'll turn it back on and record. Why the hell would you do that? It made no sense. The advertising was the problem. Had Canon not shown people shooting 8K at a wedding, because I remember the original material that they showed, then it would not have been a big deal. But that's not what they did initially. They showed it being used in certain scenarios, and you're like, I can't rely on this camera for that prolonged period of time. But you know what? Because of all the stink about it, because people bringing it up, other people testing it out, they addressed it, and it's gotten much, much better. Now, I haven't used the R5 since then, but from the looks of it, it's gotten much better. And to be honest, had no one mentioned a single thing, if no one said a single thing about it, Canon would not have had to do a firmware update. But that's how it rolls. So anyway, long story short, 4K 60p, I'm going to say 99.999%. The answer is no, we're not going to get it. The next question that I got was from Mokhtar on my previous video, asking whether or not the Sony A7IV is an upgrade to the A9. Now, this is very interesting. I've had the A9 obviously since 2017, and it's been great. I absolutely enjoy it as a sports camera. Now, the thing is, these two cameras are different generations now, right? Different iterations. And what's interesting is that they offer different things. So what's cool about the A9 is that it's geared towards sports, high action, peak action. That's where it's very strong at, autofocus-wise. The A7IV now is really a hybrid beast. And again, I haven't gone out and tested it, but just alone on what it offers you, it's actually really good for both stills and in video of what they begin to offer in this camera. So they just kind of kept up with that pedigree of, hey, let's create a camera that is both good in stills and in video. Not the best, but it's good in both. And so this camera, I would say, for the time, it was really good in both video and stills. Granted, it did not have picture profiles, which I still gave Sony a stink about. And luckily, the A1 they took care of that. But at the time, this camera right here, video-wise, was pretty good. But now today, 2020, 2021, going to 2022, we want better features in video, right? And this is the first gen, and so we definitely got that in the A7IV. So to answer Mokhtar's question, whether or not this A9 is an upgrade to A7IV, the simple answer is, do you shoot high action sports at a high level? I just shoot high school sports, so it's not big a deal. I could get away with this. I've been getting away with an A7S III for crying out loud. It's really weird. So I got to make a video about that. Been shooting with the A7S III. Image files are great on that camera. It does great video, but stills are also great too. And I've been really happy with it. Autofocus is good enough. 10 frames per second for the stuff I do is more than adequate. It's just, it's like chef's kiss basically, having like an A9 system with 20 frames per second. It helps you capture those peak action moments, and paired with my 400 2.8, absolutely love it. So really, in the world of dynamics, if you don't shoot that high action sports at maybe college or professional level stuff, then yeah, this is definitely an upgrade. I would consider it over the A9. But if you shoot that kind of stuff, then this is actually a downgrade from that. You want to go to the A9 Mark II or even the A1. Folks, those are my thoughts on these couple of questions. Let me know your thoughts down below on those questions. What do you think? Is the A7IV an upgrade? And do you think we'll ever see 4K 60p no crop in the A7IV? That's going to do it for me. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out my other content. Bye.